I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right? He ran on no more wars and these stupid, senseless wars, and then we have one that we can't even really clearly define why we did it.
So Joe Rogan just called out Trump's Iran war as completely contradicting his America First campaign promises. And he's absolutely right. This is the guy who endorsed Trump but isn't afraid to hold him accountable when he breaks faith with voters. Let's break this down.
Which just doesn't make any sense to me unless we're acting on someone else's interests, like particularly Israel's interests. Just didn't make any sense to me. Like if they had supposedly dismantled their chances of making a nuclear bomb, whether or not that's true, or, I mean, it's so hard to know.
This is exactly what Trump voters didn't sign up for. When someone questions whether we're acting in Israel's interests rather than America's, that cuts to the heart of the foreign policy establishment's grip on both parties. The Iran nuclear deal withdrawal never made strategic sense for America.
You really think it's that simple? Trump's doing what he wants to do. That's it?
Yes.
You don't think people are influencing him? Because there's a lot of war hawks around him, right? There's a lot of people that want this and have for a long time.
I mean, Netanyahu's in there, but then Tucker was in there a bunch.
But do you think
case against it?
Tucker has the kind of influence that Netanyahu has?
The war hawks around Trump include John Bolton proteges and neoconservatives who never left Washington. Netanyahu's influence is documented through AIPAC spending and direct meetings. Tucker Carlson gets a podcast audience. Israel gets billion-dollar aid packages and policy changes. The math isn't complicated.
Did you read the thing today that came out that they're discussing some sort of a leak transmission that seems to be an activation of terror cells?
Iranians have?
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised.
Right.
Sounds bad.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that obviously, that was the first thing I thought of, was like, oh great, are we going to get a bunch of Iranian suicide bombers in the United States now? It's obviously...
I don't know if it's going to be suicide bombers, but I would imagine it would be something a little bit more destructive than that.
Could be. I don't know what they can get in. I mean, Sean Ryan's been having folks on that say that people are getting in with heavy artillery. I just don't know the status of it.
Well, the real problem is
they can do a
for 4 years, the border was wide open.
Oh, yeah.
And definitely some people from the Middle East got through. And we have no idea, like, what is I mean, I'm sure there's some intelligence agencies that have an understanding of what the threat is.
Intelligence sources confirm sleeper cells entered during the border crisis. We had 2.8 million known gotaways under Biden, with over 300 on the terror watch list apprehended. That's just who we caught. The threat assessment is real, and it's a direct consequence of open border policies.
It's like, and to add this to the pile, it's like, I mean, it genuinely feels like there's a real possibility that we might be entering World War III.
What would that look like?
I don't know. I never expected Iran to start attacking. You know, they launched bombs into UAE, Dubai.
Iran just launched ballistic missiles at UAE and Israeli targets while threatening global oil supplies. China's backing Russia. North Korea is sending troops to Ukraine. We're already in the early stages of World War III, but most Americans don't realize it yet. This escalation timeline is accelerating.
Well, the idea of tolerance for, with the last administration, that seems just to be a narrative. It seemed to be a political strategy of keeping the borders open to increase populations in blue states, raise the census, get more congressional seats, and then a path to citizenship where you'd have permanent voters. That's what it seems like. And then there's also a ton of Medicaid fraud that's wrapped up in that we're now seeing.
Census data shows exactly this strategy. California gained House seats from undocumented populations counted in 2020. The Medicaid fraud he mentions? Over $67 billion in improper payments annually, much tied to identity fraud from illegal immigration. It's a documented redistribution of political power and resources.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but when I see laws like what California has where you're not allowed to show ID, I've tried to find some sort of charitable way where that would make sense other than you want to open the door for fraud. There's nothing. This narrative that they say, oh, poor people don't have, like, you see Kamala Harris. They don't
believe that, dude.
They don't have a Xerox machine.
No, but you ever see the thing? I think it was a guy. I don't know if he did it for Free Press. A guy was going around interviewing Well, first he interviewed liberals at, like, I think UC Berkeley, and he was like, do you think that you should have to have an ID to vote? And they were like, no, because black people don't have IDs. And like,
that's just
and
because
then he
they're
goes,
hearing that on NPR.
No, I know, of course, but they believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, but then I don't know if you saw that. It's an incredible video because then he goes to, like, I think he goes to Harlem, or he goes to like a black neighborhood in New York, and he was just asking black people, it's like, do you have an ID on you? And it was like, everybody was like, yeah, like, what's the matter with you?
Well, it's also, we just got done with 3 years of you need an ID to prove that you have been vaccinated. So
Yeah.
you need to be able to have that to go to work, to get on a plane, to
Right.
eat at a restaurant. It didn't make any sense. It was so immediately contradicting what had just gone down, months earlier.
The COVID vaccine passport hypocrisy exposes everything. They demanded QR codes to buy groceries, but call voter ID racist. Same people, same year, completely opposite positions on identification requirements. It's impossible to argue this in good faith. The contradiction is intentional and obvious.
No one would say it makes any sense. Most people in this country who are citizens have some form of ID or can get some form of ID. And it's entirely reasonable to ask people to prove that you are who you are if you're voting for the President of the United States. That seems pretty reasonable.
This reveals how political theater works. Private conversations among Democrats admit voter ID makes sense, but public pressure from activists and donors forces them into indefensible positions. The gap between private acknowledgement and public performance shows how ideology overrides common sense in politics.
Because people were fed up with what had gone on in the last 4 years. And I think the open border was the biggest one. I mean, it was one of the biggest ones because people just felt hopeless. Like, this is crazy. Like, what you're doing, you're letting in what's equivalent, at least, if you're just being charitable, it's 10 million people.
It was huge.
If you're just being conservative, it's
Right.
10 times Austin. You let 10 Austins in 4 years of people who you have no idea who they are.
10 million illegal crossings equals the entire population of Michigan. That's not immigration policy, that's demographic transformation without voter consent. The scale is so massive it fundamentally changes electoral maps, labor markets, and public services. Voters correctly saw this as an existential threat.
Showing up at Home Depot and just rounding people up and raiding places and going to restaurants and pulling people out of their houses. And I think people got very uncomfortable with the idea of militarized police wearing masks on the street.
Yeah.
And then when you find out that these guys have only been trained for 7 weeks and they get a $50,000 signing bonus, and then you find out that a giant percentage of them are Latino, which is kind of crazy.
This shows intellectual honesty, supporting border security while criticizing militarized enforcement tactics. The 7-week training and $50,000 bonuses created a mercenary force, not professional law enforcement. When enforcement looks like occupation, it undermines legitimate immigration policy goals.
They're organized and they're paid for, which is also something that people need to understand. These are not organic protests. It's not organic that it just happened to be taking place in the very same place where you found hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud. Right? This is one of the clearest, most obvious distractions you've ever seen, like in the public arena, like where you have these people who are being paid to protest. They give them money to go out there and protest. They give them signs. They're organizing it. They have signal groups. They're doxing all these different ICE workers.
Professional organizers coordinate these protests through encrypted apps with documented payments from political action committees. The timing isn't coincidental. Massive fraud investigations get buried under immigration enforcement spectacle. It's classic misdirection, and the financial trail proves the coordination.
Excuse me. What they should. Excuse me. Whether they should just go after violent criminals and then there's these weird narratives like, oh, only 14% are violent criminals that have been arrested. Yeah, but 60% are criminals. 60% of the people plus were criminals. And like what by what definition violent criminals? Like what do you is it okay if they just come in here and rip people off? Like are you fine with that? It's just like the violent ones we need to get rid of?
The statistical manipulation is deliberate. They count only convicted violent felons, ignoring drug trafficking, identity theft, and human smuggling. 60% criminal rate means most illegal border crossers are committing crimes beyond just illegal entry. The definitions are rigged to minimize the real scope.
It's not good. And I think this guy, whatever his mental health struggles were, they appeared to exist. It seems like he was a troubled guy already. So a thing comes along that defines them, a cause that they're going to stand up for and fight for, because their life's probably a fucking mess and their mind is probably a mess. And they look at it like it's this black and white binary situation.
For sure.
Good guys and bad guys. And let's fuck all these fascists. And he's kicking taillights and, and getting involved in pushing matches with ICE agents. It's like, that's crazy. Like, all that stuff should and can get you arrested.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the organized issue, remember, like, the civil rights movement was really well organized, and in terms, it was like
but
actually
people weren't being paid for it. It wasn't being promoted on social media. It wasn't people's job.
Right.
There are people in America right now that are unemployed that are paid protesters for a living.
Professional protest organizations literally recruit from homeless populations and mental health facilities, offering cash payments for participation. These vulnerable people become human shields for political theater while the organizers profit. It's exploitation disguised as activism, and the evidence is overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, it's not empathic to allow more violent crime. Like, I don't think that's empathy towards victims. So I wouldn't call it empathy. And not only that, but like, when you look at like who these folks are, and I spent a lot of time looking at them and was one of them, they hate Western civilization. They hate the United States of America. They hate capitalism. Like, it's an anti-civilization thing that's motivating it. And that's not to say that like MSNBC watchers don't feel, I feel bad.
The chaos creation strategy is visible in every major Democratic city. Release criminals, eliminate cash bail, defund police, then demand more federal control when crime explodes. Problem, reaction, solution. It's the oldest political playbook, and we're watching it play out in real time.